Today we're going to explore a tragic story that took place in 2019 in Florida, where a man named Grant Amato lost everything because of his obsession with online girls. The allure of the virtual world gradually consumed him, turning into an addiction, and these online relationships shattered his family's happiness, leading to unimaginable consequences. Let's dive deep into each detail to understand why poor decisions can change a person's entire life, and the horrific price we pay when we lose ourselves in a fantasy world. As always, before we begin uncovering the mysteries of today's case, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much. The Amato family lived in Florida, where the mother Margaret worked as an operations manager at a healthcare company, and the father Chad was a clinical pharmacist at CVS Pharmacy, America's largest drugstore chain. The couple had 3 sons. Jason, the eldest, was adopted by Chad when Jason was just 3 years old before he married Margaret. After they wed, they had 2 more sons, Cody and Grant. Margaret and Chad worked hard to provide their children with a good life. Chad was strict with his sons, though he didn't use punishment or yelling to enforce discipline. He simply set clear rules. If they broke them, they would have to leave home when they became adults. Jason moved out at age 19 and started his own family. Still, he often visited and remained close with his relatives. Cody and Grant, only a year apart in age, were inseparable. They shared every joy and sorrow growing up. Before college, they attended the same schools, joined the weightlifting team, played video games together, and bonded over esports, always side by side in everything. Cody was outgoing, cheerful, and easily made friends. He was the leader at social events. Grant, on the other hand, was quiet, reserved, and rarely expressed his feelings. It seemed Cody was the only person Grant truly opened up to, his emotional anchor. Cody took care of his younger brother and never failed to bring him along to any gathering. In 2011, Grant graduated from the University of Central Florida with a bachelor's degree in nursing. He quickly landed a job at a local hospital, marking the start of a promising healthcare career. But by 2018, everything fell apart. Grant, then 29, was fired after being caught stealing 8 vials of anesthetic. He was arrested but claimed he did it to help patients, believing the doctors had underprescribed the medication. Thanks to his parents' intervention, he was released, but the incident destroyed his career. Unemployed, Grant returned home burdened with shame and disappointment. At the same time, Cody was still living at home with the family. Their parents constantly urged Grant to find a new job, but he seemed trapped in depression, unwilling to leave the house or participate in any activity. Each day he wandered aimlessly inside the home, lost in the online world, ignoring his family's growing concern. Whenever his parents brought up work, Grant reacted with anger and frustration. When he needed money, he initially begged his parents. But when they refused, he turned to Cody, who was always willing to help his younger brother. Living in unemployment and under constant pressure from his parents' reminders, Grant gradually sank into loneliness and isolation. Seeking comfort, he began to escape into the virtual world, where he found temporary relief. Grant became obsessed with an adult website where camgirls, attractive online performers, became his source of entertainment and escape. Camgirls are hosts on adult live streaming platforms where they perform in front of a webcam. Fans can send them virtual gifts or real money. With enough gifts, viewers gain access to private one-on-one chats or other exclusive online services. The level of interaction and the services camgirls offer depend on how much fans are willing to spend. The more they give, the more personalized and enticing the experience becomes. On one such adult site, where everything could be experienced on one's own terms, Grant became infatuated with an online girl. Her name was Sylvia, and she was from Bulgaria. Sylvia was not only beautiful and intelligent, but also knew how to make Grant feel special during their nightly conversations. Every night, Grant would spend hours watching Sylvia perform, dancing and posing seductively. Her shows didn't just captivate him, they made him feel a special kind of connection. They often chatted privately for hours. With each conversation, Grant felt closer to Sylvia. She dedicated sensual dances and provided other private online services that led Grant to believe they were building a real romantic relationship. In those moments, he proudly showed Sylvia things about himself, claiming he was a successful esports athlete, living in a luxurious apartment, and driving an expensive BMW. Grant would often plead with Sylvia to send him personal videos, saying things like, "Sylvia, look at me, I'm here waiting for you. Can you send me a video of yourself? I'd be so happy if you did." Grant once revealed that every minute of watching Sylvia on the site cost him 90 tokens. Once he spent $600 to buy 5,000 tokens just to watch Sylvia perform for a mere 56 minutes. The more money he spent, the more attention and warmth he received from Sylvia. This deepened his obsession, and he continued pouring money into her, unable to stop. Grant began sending Sylvia gifts like adult toys and sexy lingerie. Sylvia would wear those items to entice and please him. At first, Grant spent about 4 hours each night watching Sylvia, which meant he was burning through around $500 a day. By November 2018, bank statements showed that Grant had spent up to $20,000 in a single night. He seemed addicted and no longer in control of himself. As mentioned earlier, Grant was unemployed at the time. So where was all this money coming from? Previously, it was noted that Grant often asked his family for money. But with such massive spending, how could his family not grow suspicious? Grant cleverly came up with a convincing explanation for his reckless spending. He claimed to have created an account on a gaming platform and was working toward becoming a popular streamer. According to Grant, the large expenses were an initial investment in promoting his channel to attract viewers. He even promised that once his account grew and gained followers, the money would start coming back. With a reason that sounded plausible, his family didn't question him much. Even though they had never seen any gaming account owned by their son, his parents trusted him enough to hand over their credit cards without asking questions. In December 2018, Grant, his brother Cody, and their friend Jericho took a trip to Japan, a dream destination where the three could indulge in their shared passion for anime. However, since Grant was still unemployed, Cody generously paid for the entire trip. On the final day of the trip, Grant claimed he wasn't feeling well and asked to stay back at the hotel while Cody and Jericho continued exploring. But as soon as they left, Grant secretly stole Jericho's credit card, found a spot with Wi-Fi, and used the card to keep spending money on Sylvia. Soon after, Jericho received a bank alert about a suspicious $600 charge. He quickly realized his card had been stolen by Grant. Cody then stepped in to reimburse Jericho the $600, preventing the situation from escalating further. Grant's father, Chad, could no longer tolerate his son's reckless spending and acts of theft. As a result, the two frequently argued over the matter. On December 19, 2018, Chad discovered a massive spike in the family's credit card bill, a number so shocking it left him stunned. When he confronted Grant about the expenses, a heated argument broke out between father and son. Grant then drove off in anger and didn't return home. The next morning, worried that Grant might do something drastic, his mother Margaret contacted the police. Her concern deepened when she received a distressing message from Grant. "I'm tired of this life. I'll take care of it my way." In emotional turmoil, Grant went to his aunt's house in Florida, not far from his own home. She later recalled that Grant arrived like a ghost, mentally broken and deeply depressed. While staying with her for several days, Grant spent most of his time sleeping during the day and staying up all night. But after a few days, his aunt noticed strange transactions in her bank account, each worth several $100s. Soon after, Grant's uncle, grandmother, and even his cousin also found large, unexplained charges in their accounts. The truth gradually emerged: Grant had secretly stolen credit card information from family members and used it late at night to spend on Sylvia. Grant's aunt called Chad and told him everything. Through this conversation, Chad was stunned to realize that all the money had been wasted on something so meaningless. By this point, the family was burdened with a total credit card debt of $150,000. This meant that Chad, then 58 years old, could no longer retire as planned. Despite the pain and disappointment, Chad decided to take on the massive debt on behalf of his son. He even pleaded for help from his sister. However, he set a firm condition: Grant had to quit his addiction to Sylvia and end his destructive spending. Eventually, Grant admitted he had spent around $200,000 on Sylvia. All of it had been stolen from his family and relatives. Recognizing how serious the situation was, the entire Amato family, including the parents, 2 older brothers, and Grant, gathered at the aunt's house to discuss the matter. They agreed to come together and help Grant through this dark period. The family gave Grant an ultimatum: either he agreed to go to rehab and receive treatment, or he would be cut off from the family. Under pressure, Grant agreed to check into a rehabilitation center that specialized in such behavioral issues. The family immediately took him there from his aunt's house. He was required to stay for 60 days, with the treatment costing $15,000. While Grant was in rehab, his brother Cody and father decided to check his computer. When they logged into Grant's account on the adult site he frequented, they discovered a shocking truth: Grant had fabricated an entirely fake identity and life online. He was deeply involved in Sylvia's fan community, had made online friends, and was living in a fantasy world of his own creation. At the same time, Cody and their father Chad sent messages to everyone in the fan community explaining that everything Grant had ever claimed was a lie. He wasn't a successful gamer. but just a 29-year-old unemployed man still living off his family. They also revealed the truth to Sylvia, telling her that all the money Grant had spent on her was stolen from his family. They even asked Sylvia to stop contacting him. On January 5, 2019, Grant returned home. But instead of completing the 60-day rehab program as planned, he had only stayed for 2 weeks. Grant claimed he was completely fine and had no more problems. However, his father Chad wasn't easily convinced. He laid out a strict set of rules that Grant had to follow. If he violated them, he would be sent to the military. Among the rules, the most important one was that Grant must absolutely not contact Sylvia again. At first, Grant seemed to obey, but just days later he began finding ways to circumvent the rules. He borrowed his mother's phone, claiming he needed internet access. Because of her deep affection for her youngest son, Margaret handed over the phone without hesitation. As soon as he had the chance, Grant used it to contact Sylvia again through Twitter. On January 24th, when Chad discovered that Grant was still secretly contacting Sylvia, he exploded with anger. He demanded that Grant leave the house immediately. After a heated argument, Chad left for work. Around 9:15 p.m., before heading home, Cody texted his girlfriend as usual. But the next day, January 25, 2019, police received a call from one of Cody's co-workers who reported that he hadn't shown up for work, wasn't answering calls or texts. The colleague who had known Cody for years was concerned since Cody had never missed work without notice. At 9 a.m., police arrived at the house. They knocked, but no one answered, even though Cody's car was parked outside. The officers forced entry. Inside, they found Chad lying unresponsive on the kitchen floor, already deceased. In the microwave, a plate of chicken was still thawing. His lunchbox had fallen to the floor, suggesting he had just gotten home and was preparing dinner. Police continued their search and found Margaret's body in the study. She was sitting in a chair slumped over the desk. A glass of wine and an open laptop sat in front of her. Cody's body was later found near the garage door, still in his work uniform. Beside him was a backpack, and about 1.5 meters away, 2 guns. 4 shell casings were scattered across the floor. But notably, those guns weren't the murder weapons, the bullet calibers didn't match the barrels, and there were no fingerprints or DNA from a suspect on them. It was clear the killer had wiped down and staged the scene to mislead the investigation. Still, the scene revealed strange inconsistencies. As mentioned, the 2 guns weren't the murder weapons. Cody's body was found at the garage door, yet the door itself was still closed and had no blood on it. If Cody had been shot with the door closed, there would have been blood spatter. This suggested the door had been shut after the shooting. Police later discovered that aside from Cody, another son, Grant, was part of the family. However, Grant wasn't at home when the incident occurred. The next day, detectives traced his whereabouts and found his car parked at a hotel in Orange County, Florida. He was immediately brought in for questioning. "We need to check if you're carrying any weapons. Stand still and state your full name." "My name is Grant Amato." The interrogation lasted more than 7 hours. Grant admitted to stealing money, his relationship with Sylvia, and the arguments with his father. He recounted everything truthfully. Grant said that on the night of the 24th, the same night, Cody texted his girlfriend saying he would return home to handle some issues. Cody came home and informed Grant that the family knew everything about Sylvia, demanding that Grant move out. Grant said he packed his bags and left, and before leaving, Cody told him that he would take care of their parents and handle everything. Grant insisted that when he left, everyone in the house was still alive and well. His tone seemed to imply that Cody was the one responsible, and he had no knowledge of what happened. "Cody will take care of everything," Grant said repeatedly during the interrogation. He kept insisting he didn't know what had happened and that everything was normal when he left. However, Grant's statements began to contradict. At first, he claimed he left the house at 9:30 p.m. when Cody hadn't come home yet. But later he changed his statement and said he left at 12:30 a.m. after Cody had returned. Grant said he spent the night in a parking lot and the next morning drove to a job interview. Jason, Grant's surviving brother, was quickly brought in to meet Grant. When Jason walked into the interrogation room, he hugged Grant and said, "If you did this, just admit it. I want to believe you, Grant. But you're the only one left alive in that house. I know what's been going on these past 6 months. I understand what you've been through. But I just can't believe you would go this far. If not you, then who? How are we supposed to find out? You have no idea how much I love you, just like I loved Cody and Mom and Dad. I know Dad wasn't a bad man, and neither was Cody. They were our family, and they would never hurt us. They helped you through all those dark things you did. But now I'm left with this question: was it you? I need an answer. I want to know what really happened to Mom, Dad, and Cody. Because I wasn't there to help, and that kills me. It tears me apart. On January 26th, Grant was released. Despite having a clear motive and all signs pointing to him as the killer, there wasn't enough evidence to hold him. 2 days later, on January 28th, Grant was arrested again and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Police found he was carrying a pair of leather gloves, a credit card, and a savings card. The gloves had traces of gunpowder. Although Grant claimed he used them for shooting practice, family and friends said they had never seen him wear them before. The credit card belonged to Grant's father, Chad, and the savings card belonged to his brother, Cody. Grant also carried a passport, leading police to believe he might have planned to flee to Bulgaria to meet Sylvia. Police also found a letter on Grant. It was supposedly written by Cody, apologizing for everything that had happened. But investigators later discovered that Grant had written it himself to make his story more convincing. In July 2019, Grant's trial began. Police reconstructed the timeline. The last recorded activity on Margaret's computer was at 4:44 p.m., believed to be the beginning of the crime. Around 5:30 p.m., Chad arrived home and went into the kitchen. Grant followed him and likely attacked there. At about 10 p.m., Cody came home through the garage. Grant was already inside, cleaning the scene and rearranging everything. After cleaning, Grant used his father's fingerprint to unlock the phone and access his bank account. He transferred all the money to his own account. Police noted that Chad's fingerprints had been wiped clean, likely for that very purpose. That night, Grant left home and went to a parking lot. There he used Cody's phone to look up Sylvia and spent over $600 using Cody's card. It was already 3:00 a.m. After an 8-hour trial, the jury found Grant guilty on all 3 charges and sentenced him to life in prison without parole. Throughout the trial, Grant showed no emotion. His gaze remained cold and expressionless. To this day, Grant maintains his innocence. Several media outlets have approached Grant about a documentary, but he has refused all offers. He says he will only participate if the media agree to cover his legal fees and help secure his release. When talking about Sylvia in a prison interview, Grant said he fell in love with her at first sight. 2 days before the incident, Grant wrote a letter to Sylvia in which he apologized for fabricating his background, admitting he was not successful and was living with his parents. He confessed that he had lied just to get Sylvia's attention. However, Grant never mentioned stealing money from his family, friends, or loved ones. He only expressed regret for breaking Sylvia's trust. I hope Sylvia can forgive me and give me a second chance. The letter was 8 pages long, mostly filled with apologies and expressions of affection towards Sylvia. At the end, Grant wrote, "You mean everything to me. I will devote my life to making you happy." The cases we've previously covered often revolve around families with strict upbringing, intense academic pressure, or fractured relationships due to domestic violence. But in today's story, we see an exception. The Amato family was loving and close-knit. When the youngest son, Grant, was in crisis, the whole family stepped up without hesitation to help him through. In such a warm and united family, how could there be a son so selfish, weak, and immature that he would harm those who loved him the most? We often think of family as the safest haven, where one can always find unconditional love and protection. When someone makes a mistake, it's usually family who steps up first to help without judgment. But the story of the Amato family offers another perspective. Despite their unwavering support for Grant, covering up his mistakes, protecting him, helping him again and again, that very protection may have pushed him further down the wrong path. He stole anesthetics from the hospital, and instead of facing consequences, his family covered it up. He stole money from relatives, but rather than taking the right steps, his family quietly helped him. Even knowing he had an internet addiction, they still gave him access to devices. Their actions resembled how one might treat a child, not a 30-year-old man. This may have created a dangerous illusion in Grant's mind, that no matter what he did, someone would always be there to clean up after him. Could it be that this unconditional support blurred his sense of accountability, leading to this devastating tragedy? From the perspective of a parent or loved one, such support might seem natural. When we see someone we care about in trouble, we want to protect them from harm. But sometimes overprotection backfires, preventing the person from facing the consequences of their actions and growing from them. So in the end, what should we do in situations like this? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next videos.